I'm Andrew Broussard. I am going to be approaching the painting from 2 days ago again. So it's the same photo that I'm working with. And this time, working off the Kindle with that photo by Joe Menza, who is one of the admins on the Ron Ranson Disciples, the Big Brush, Fast and Loose Facebook page. And he also has his own YouTube page and whatnot. Anyway, he had shared this photo. I had done a painting of it, and I wanted to have a second crack at it. Now, in the last video, I was saying how I was having some issues with the screen just going to sleep after 30 seconds. Lo and behold, of all people, my mother sent me a message on Facebook with how to change that time frame on these Kindles. So, apparently my mom watches these videos. So, chances are, if you're watching this, you may be my mom. So, when you hear this, Mom, just let you know that I love you and thank you for your support. And it's really good to have supportive people in your life and to be a supportive person of others, your loved ones, strangers, neighbors, etc. So within the art world, support is very important, especially when somebody's experimenting, learning a new thing and whatnot. So I'm just super soaking my Stonehenge aqua paper. This is a 11 by 15 sheet that I had just torn up. And like I said, I'll be using that photo from the beginning. Last time I had used the Naples yellow, red, as the wash in the sky, which I'm not going to use this time. I'm going to use my raw sienna, and I think I'm going to mix alizarin into the raw sienna and see if that gives a similar effect as that paint. I haven't looked at the number codes for this paint. I'll pull it up right now just for those that might be interested. PY42, PO43. So later on I'll have to look and see what those ones are. I'm not sure what they are off the bat, but PY is most likely the yellow. Anyway, so I'm going to be looking at my raw sienna. We're going to utilize the blues like last time, as my paper kind of soaks and stretches and gets ready for me adjusting it. I'll lay out the colors. We're going to have to put out some more of our phthalo blue. Now, phthalo blue is a color that I found that I do not need to buy in large quantities. And if you ever have trouble opening one, looks like I may have actually broke the thing. So I'll just kind of get it out the side. I do believe I have another small one of these, so it's no devastating loss. But it's always a shame when something like that happens. You can see how many times I had been at this bottle to get it open in the past. Usually you want to squeeze the paint up towards the top so when you twist, it doesn't move as much, but it looks like my cap might have cracked. You could run hot water over it and that'll help loosen it. But sometimes that happens. Anyway, so we're going to be using the phthalo blue quite a bit. We're going to have our ultramarine. And last time I didn't use any light red, so I believe we'll use that for the more distant trees. So just coming up with a plan, coming up with an idea. There's a lot of grays, greens, and yellows. Sorry, browns, greens, and yellows within this painting. So like last time, we'll focus on that. So it looks like our paper is soaked. Now we're going to get it settled. And like I said, I wanted to utilize the raw sienna this time. And we'll mix a little alizarin. And this will be our background wash. And I had gotten a little bit of that phthalo blue, like you had seen earlier, on the paper. I'm just going to roll with it and let it be an accident that took place and just see how it results. Okay, so we got that there. This time I want to be a little bit more timid with the color for the snow. So I'm going to try to leave a lot of white space open. I do feel like things, all right, everything's looking good. Perfect. So we mix that up. I did talk about how last time you could have taken ultramarine and mixed with burnt umber to get a gray for the sky. So I'll throw a little bit in there. Now I'm going to go towards my light red. Light red and ultramarine mixed together for a grayish purple. This will be my far tree line. With the last composition that I put together, I had an opening right in here, and I believe I'm going to have that again. However, the tree that I put in sat flush with this edge, and I didn't like how that had come out. So we're gonna have to keep that in mind when we get to the tree that's in this one. Now I'm just gonna mix in some of my earth tones, just changing up the strength of this tint. And there's a second line that sits more forward. Put that in there. Now, last time I talked about the use of Payne's gray or a black versus mixing your darks. And this one, I'm going to try and mix my darks as opposed to using Payne's gray. So earth tones and ultramarine. Now, me doing this, there's two rules that I'm going to put in place. First off, me using a mixture, if it comes out better, you can't say that it's because it's a mixture. Because remember, this is my second time with this painting and this composition. I've had time to think about it and what I might want to mix up and do for it. So remember, keep that in mind. Then the second rule is that if it comes out worse, remember that maybe I haven't used this mixture in a while. So don't just look at this one and the previous and say, oh, well, it's better because he used Payne's gray, or better because he mixed his gray in this one. I want you to experiment on your own with this, okay? This is a shadow where the tree is going to sit. The tree is most likely going to come right there. Okay, so keep those two rules in mind, that if you decide to watch both videos, that those things can happen. The one thing I do like about mixing the ultramarine is that you get a pretty interesting granulation with it, with your mixes. Okay, so I'm just putting some more darks. Everything's super wet, everything's just spreading out. As you go wet and wet, you want to increase the concentration of paint in it, or you'll start getting back runs and cauliflowering and all that. So it's super wet and wet. The rule is, as you add more color, as you play around with it, add more to it, you want to increase the concentration of paint. But cauliflowers are, and back runs are wanted in some paintings. So if that's something that you want to do, then you would add more water into it. In fact, if I was to take a spray bottle, and this is just for you guys to see, you see how it wants to start pushing. It may be so wet that it's not even affecting it that much, but just keep that in mind. All right, phthalo blue. What I'll probably wind up doing is pouring out the rest of that tube that broke on me and just put it on the palette. I mean, I could re-wet it. That's the blessing of watercolor. So I haven't washed the brush yet either. This is just putting everything in. I also opened up a new razor blade, so I believe I'm going to approach the end the same way I did the last one with the razor blades to see what interesting textures we can get. So we got that. Let's wash this brush now. Some raw sienna. Okay. See, that's the cauliflower I'm talking about from the water sitting right there. All right, let's do a little bit of drying. We're not going to try to dry completely because I want some scraping. I could scrape right here. You see how I get immediately that black line. I talk about that every time. In fact, just to show you another wet and wet thing that I haven't done in a while, if I could find my rigger brush. Oh no, I might have left it in the kitchen. Is it underneath? No. Well, this is embarrassing. Oh, there it is. No, it's not embarrassing. Okay. So I could take that and I can bring up trees and branches up into this background, and that'll diffuse. Now notice how this is different than this. So the rigger and the wet and wet gives a diffusal and a softening, while scraping into it will give a more defined line. As you can tell, I like to do a more gentler drying off because you may be able to see the pooled spot of water. I want to push it around very easily. So let's see if we can get some white scrapes. Okay, so we got those areas are still a little damp. Let's mix our phthalo blue with more concentration of burnt umber. Let's get some raw sienna there. You can see with the drier paper, even though it's still damp, so at this stage of wetness with it, you'll see that we get a dispersion plus some dry brushing. So there's different variations taking place on top of this paper itself. All right. Okay, so we can take our same dark, come back over this with some more background trees. Bring some of that reflection down. You can take this, take another brush, see if we get some splattering off of it. It might not be wet enough. There you go. I don't usually use the hake for splattering. Usually I'll take a round. So I got a round now. And I can splatter that. Okay, let's do a complete dry off, and then we'll start going more solid and vivid. Now, something I had started doing at this point is to take a light wash whenever it's dry and put in just a little bit of something. This is just that far background line. And I find it helps tie together what's going on. Now, you may see this faint type of background across very common landscapes that people have been doing. It's very common across the landscapes that people have been doing where they have a mountain range and then behind that maybe something in this value or buildings. So at this stage is when you kind of put back some background concepts. So you use a light wash on the dried paper and start getting the effects back there. However you want to do it. You can get different concentrations to add a little bit more texture to it, but I don't believe you want to get too detailed with that. Okay? So just keep that in mind as something you can do at that stage once you do that dry off. Now, I'm going to use my mixtures of raw sienna, phthalo. The paper brush is a little too wet, so I want to get more textured with it. Darken it. Okay, so I'm just putting in foliage. So I'm going to bring down the shadows and the darks. Let's see if I can get how dark I can get it. Okay, let me get some pure burnt umber. Yep, so you see the dark that could be created with blue and the darker earth tones. I believe you can obtain a similar darkness with ultramarine and either very concentrated raw sienna or burnt umber as well. Okay, these are basically where the tree is going to be. Okay, so having had just put that wet area in, I need to dry that. One thing you could always try, I'm doing this, to show y'all, you can spritz areas to help them soften up if you feel that the dry brush is too rough. Experiment, maybe you might like it, maybe you might not. Anyway, so last time I let it sit right against that and only had light on one side, so I'm going to bring this guy up. I'm just using the hake. And the brush is mainly on the drier side, and I'm trying to push, pull, tap, dab to get different variations within that tree. Getting the rigor. Now you know who's really good at trees? Lois. I think her last name is Davidson. She does YouTube tutorials with the Hake brush as well, and her trees are fantastic, especially trees in this style. So if you want to see some good trees with the branches, Lois Davidson is the YouTuber that you want to watch there. Now, another interesting tree, a person with foliage, David Usher, does like a really amazing job with the fast and loose. So those are some other YouTubers for you to check out. So far what I've mentioned, Joe Menza, then there's Lois Davidson. She does a lot of trees and skies tutorials. David Usher, who produces a lot of videos, very good. Stephen Cronin, who got me turned on to this style of big brush and palette, Ron Ranson. He has a lot of videos, and he has books that he's published about painting. So he's someone for you all to check out. Then another one is Alan Owen. Alan Owen, I believe he's more in the style of, is it Ted Wesson, Edward Wesson, where it's kind of very much like a one brush stroke, 2 or 3 brush stroke type of trees, which you'll see in some of David Usher, but you see it a lot in Alan Owen's videos. It's really amazing how he utilizes and makes it look like such minimal effort. So those are all some really good people for you to check out. Me, I'm just putting in paintings, just trying to get this whole tutorial thing comfortable, while also just trying to get better at my painting. Okay. So I think this tree is coming out quite interesting. I believe I'd put a brush in here at the end. Let's look at the photo, see what we want to do. You know, you don't have to put everything in a photo that's in a photo on the painting itself. Just a light wash like I had done back here. Can do that to try to soften that edge a little bit if I wanted to. So at this point, it's kind of starting to tickle the painting. One thing that I was thinking about after the last painting, and I'm not sure where I saw it, but it talked about how, you know, when you wet watercolor paper, especially if it's cotton or whatever, the fibers loosen up, and you can eventually start getting a like losing vibrancy and whatnot, because you're starting to fray those fibers as you keep tickling and going at it. So I don't know where I saw that, or if I'm making that up. I'm pretty sure it's a thing, but something that I need to keep in mind, because you saw how much I like to push the paint around and see where things are going. I think I'm liking this one a lot more than the previous one that I had done. I think what I want to do is dry off, maybe do a quick experiment with the razor just to see what texture we can get, and then we'll call it. matches up. So with this one, everything's dry, and I find that if I do the little picking, it works best whenever it's dry. This is a brand new razor I just taken out. I think with the razors kind of wear down very quickly. So I'm just adding little dots and random patterns. So far, I think my idea of painting is that the tonal value, the lights and darks, are maybe more important than colors. Is more important than colors. But I also am thinking that texture is the second most important thing before colors. And having dry brush, having diffusal, having lines, having blots and circles, I think those things are important. Let's see how this scrapes. Okay. Okay, so I'm just holding it flat against it, just doing a little picking motion towards me. Last time I did more of a digging. I think that this would be a good technique over ice. I also think it helps pull that white area forward with perspective, though I haven't stood up or looked back yet to see. So, you tell me as you watch this, was this scraping a good addition, or would you have left it alone at that point? Anyway, painting is just about done. We'll put a mat over it, see how everything looks. We'll sign it, and then I'll start the whole upload to YouTube process. I hope you all enjoyed this painting. I think I personally had learned a lot from a second go at this scene. Thanks again to my awesome mom who had sent me instructions on how to change the screen time on that Kindle. Put the mat right here. I need to switch the angle the camera's looking at. There you go. So that's the final result. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. If you're interested, please like, subscribe, and check out my other videos. Have a great day.